VERB FRAU TV in conversation with Adrian Stimson. Adrian employs persona in his performance work. Adrian, where do your persona come from?
In my own mind, it was always looking at the multiplicity of our being. As I got older and started to understand that and sort of move through that process of coming to know those. So it's in terms of managing them, I think that there always will be little overlaps because basically the shaman exterminator is Buffalo Boy, but at the same time doesn't want to admit it, and sort of has this whole other sort of spiritual realm. And the shaman exterminator is more of a menacing sort of character and sort of playing off, shamanic ideas, of course, but also those fine lines in my own cultural history as a Blackfoot, like our own shamanic practices and customs and stuff like that. So for me, there's a real strong sort of also differentiating that this is not ceremony and this is not that. This is performance art. So it's really in that space where I have to be very clear, especially if I'm playing to my own sort of people or audience. From time to time, various personas come forward, but I don't necessarily name them. They're just sort of all a part of or what I would think as little fractures in my personality. And so I think that the persona is that sort of space where I'm able to enact a lot of my own history. If I were to think of the persona itself, it comes, and my own psychoanalysis of myself comes from my childhood, where when I was about 8 or 9 years, started probably when I was about 8 years old till about 10 or 11, where my personality split, where I was going to residential school at that time, and I had, after school, I would go home and change into a white pleather fringe jacket, and all of a sudden became Adrienne. So I would go out and tell everybody that I was a twin, that I was Adrian's twin, who never was allowed to go to school. Most of my characters have a comedic sense, and even though the shaman exterminator is menacing, there's a comedic sense in there because it's also looking at pomp and circumstance, that relation to the crown, and sort of that whole history as well. The orb, the staff. The orb is one brings the monarch closer to God. It's it's God in her hand, type of thing. So I think looking at that and those spiritual realms and being critical of them, critical think around them, what they are, what they mean. So I hope that the shaman exterminator sort of plays in that area of critical thinking around that, but at the same time doesn't necessarily judge it because it's like it is what it is. And so I think that's kind of what the shaman's all about.
There's something transformative.
Yeah. Shape-shifting. If I was to take a look at indigenous sort of thinking, it's this idea of shape-shifting. And so maybe that's perhaps more that what happens is that I suddenly turn into something that's there, but maybe not, and then comes forward.
All right. Okay, shape-shifting.